They instead would rather economically trade with the Arabs in the area. And the second point that I mentioned, so that's giving the history. So the history doesn't start with settlements. Another thing that is pointed out is that Richard Goldstone says that wants Israel to set up committees. This has been done. There are 35 military investigations going on currently. Secondly, I just want to point out that Richard Goldstone says on CNN that the war was justified. That when you fire 8,000 rockets into Israel, then the war is justified. It's an act of self-defense. The second thing is that, we come to the boycotts. Civil societies came together to call for boycott as a tactic to end the occupation, and he says that, my understanding, is a form of resistance. Yet the terror attacks have never stopped. There continue to be rockets from Gaza to this day. Indeed, the last suicide bombing was in 2008 in Lebanon. So violence against civilians, violence against people who are not involved with the conflict has been a hallmark of the Arab leadership. And this BDS, if you look at the history of boycott, divestment, and sanctions, in the South African government, they used, in the South African context, they used boycott, divestment, and sanctions to get the South African apartheid government to the table. This contrasts highly with the conflict currently. As time and time again, the Zionist enterprises repeatedly tried to come to a solution with the Arabs and have repeatedly came out in favor of an autonomous Arab state. This can be seen in 1937 in the Appeal Commission, which was accepted by the Zionists and rejected by the Arabs, and offered 70% of the land to the Arabs. The Appeal Partition Plan, which offered 30% of the population, 60% of the land. However, more than 50% of that land was unhospitable negev, where it was impossible to this day. Most of that land is unsettled. You've got the Oslo Accords, with suicide bombings happening after the signing of the Oslo Accord, in the immediate aftermath of the Oslo Accord. So indeed, the reason that there has not been peace is because of Arab leadership. It's violence, and a refusal to accept a Jewish presence in Israel. And we've seen that with the Hebron massacre, where Arabs turned on their Jewish neighbors because they were Jewish and killed them. So I think that the whole narration of the conflict has been made, and I don't agree with the settlements. I think that the settlements that are built may be problematic to the conflict and inflate the conflict. But does that justify boycott, divestments, and sanctions? One of the most free countries in which you've got 12 out of the 120 seats of Israeli parliament taken out by Arabs. Is that what apartheid was about? Apartheid was about institutional discrimination against people based on their race. This is not what Israel is about. Indeed, many of the Jews inside Israel come from Arab countries that are deep indistinguishable from Palestinians.
I'd like to just maybe ask for a response on one or two things for you. And we can maybe get some people from the audience then to make a comment or two. When you talked about this campaign, spoke about it as something that started in about 2001. And a lot of the counter material that we've just encountered has to do with sort of further history. So I want to ask maybe what your approach is. Do you think that this campaign should be viewed as some kind of clean slate? How do you relate it to the history before? And perhaps do you want to talk about some things about why you think that it's important for this to happen now, and why now is different from stuff that's happened before?
Okay, so great. So you agree that settlement is wrong, you agree that Israel should abide by international law. So what are you suggesting then? How do we get settlements to stop? How do we get this is a call made by the native people, the people of Palestine, who are at the brunt of the occupation. They have called on for this sort of action. Joe, I don't know. I mean, we've been answering for boycott, divestment, and sanctions. I mean, we can go into discussion of Zionism, the state of Israel, whether Israel is a colonial project or not. But for me to focus on BDS, I must look at what has BDS aimed to achieve, and that is three things. I can't remember. I'm going to summarize it when you guys can go check it out later. I mean, the 2005 call is widely circulated on the internet. But the main call of the summary of the call is to get Israel to apply for international law. To get Israel this juncture, and this is what is being called for. I mean, we can get into debate of the Zionist project, all these kind of things, but it's a bit like the distraction, right? And I don't want to get into the distraction right now. I want to talk about what we're going to do. And then it's the BDS, and what is the BDS?
Yeah, no, I actually wanted to say something about that. You finish? Respond? Okay, let's keep it quick. Let's have what you want to say.
Okay, I just want to say, first of all, there was the ICC advisory judgment on the war, which did say that that talked about occupied territories. I just think that I have to point out that this motion was submitted by the Security Council on a vote of 90 to 190. That wasn't unanimously passed at the international court, and in fact, most of the 90 countries are not free themselves. So that's the first point. So that, and your second point is that BDS aims for Israel to abide by international law. And I think that I agree. I mean, the way that this is going to come about is about peaceful negotiations between the Palestinians and Israelis, and this has taken place at Taba. This has taken place at Camp David, where you may say that not enough was offered, but almost 100% of the West Bank was offered to the Palestinians at both Taba and in Clinton parameters, and was rejected. So this is the reason for the continuation of the sentence.
Perhaps this is a nice time to get some input from the audience. I think what I want to try and do is take one or two hands, get some discussion going, maybe get our panelists to respond to things, and then go back to some questions, and we'll do it all again. So I see one hand there, and I'll take you. So you first.
Sorry, I'm not understanding why the PSC is at. Sorry, I'm not understanding why the PSC is at this debate. Since I understand that the PSC does not believe in the state of Israel, full stop. Never mind boycotts, divestment, sanctions. They want Israel to end. So what are you doing here when we're discussing the boundaries? Essentially, that's what we're discussing.
I'm not sure I particularly understand the question, but maybe I should do it.
Sorry, does the PSC also support sanctions and boycotts and divestments for Palestinian groups that are in violation of international law?
Can I clarify my question? What I'm saying is that, as I understand the PSC's philosophy, is that Israel, or idea, or whatever, your platform, is that Israel shouldn't exist. The boycott, divestment, and sanctions campaign does not aim for that, even by your own standards. It aims for just Israel to abide by international law. So what I'd like to know is, what are you doing here as a member of the PSC in terms of?
If you don't believe Israel exists, is this not too weak a step? And you can respond to that how you like.
You asked about the PSC, so I come from the Palestine Solidarity Committee, an organization started, he's asking me. The Palestine Solidarity Committee was an organization started off in 2005 on this campus. It's to stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine. We do believe that an objective case can be made that Israel is guilty of the crime of apartheid. We take our call from Israelis and Palestinians working toward a just peace in the Holy Land. I don't know what else I want to tell you about the PSC.
So basically, I think what you're saying is, you don't think that all of your engagement as part of the PSC needs to be premised on the fact that there should be no Israel? I mean, do you think that that's because this question says,
I think it's really easy for the PSC to say, one state, there should be two states, there should be Israel, there should be a Palestine. I mean, we see ourselves as part of the social justice movement in the country. We take our call from, as I said, Israelis and Palestinians working for the just solution. I don't know what this talk about the PSC, how relevant it is to the issue of BDS.
I think that's fair enough. Second question.